Hey, middle-aged gamers, welcome back today. As you can see, unfortunately, Antoine is busy, occupied with middle-aged gaming life and things of that sort. So today it's just Adam and I for the moment. Potentially he might join us later, potentially not. Either way, we've still got the news is chock-a-block full of stories and things going on, and good gaming things and bad gaming things. But we're starting off with something interesting today. So Adam, tell us about the Stellar Blade demo. What is happening there?
Yeah, so the Stellar Blade demo is actually happening, and we should be getting it relatively soon. It will be coming out on March 29th, and it will cover the first chapter, which is going to include the tutorial. So it's going to be teaching you how to play and all that sort of thing. Your save data is going to carry over. So don't worry about having to do that and then losing all that content. And the game is going to release. I forgot which day it's going to release. Let me double check it real quick. But anyway, they said we also have a little surprise included for players who complete the first stage. So whether that's going to be just the data itself or whether that's going to be something else, like maybe some special skins or whatnot, hard to say. We're going to have to wait and see. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be waiting to see for that. And let me check real quick, Stellar Blade, and it releases on, why is my internet being slow right now? But anyway, oh, there we go. And it is going to be released on, there we go. It doesn't say. And it doesn't say on the official page on PlayStation. So it's coming soon, April something. But yeah, so yeah, that's basically it.
April 26th.
April 26th, okay. Yeah, yes. I don't know why the official page decided not to show it. It said it shows, you've already pre-ordered this. You can't download yet. It's like, yeah, I know that. Thank you very much. Usually it'll tell you what day it's coming out. But yeah, so go ahead and check out that demo if you're interested in playing it. I am on the fence. As I was talking to Korean earlier, I said I will play the demo on one of two conditions. The first condition being if what they said, the little extra thing, is the, if you get something else like a special skin or an accessory or something like that, yeah, I'll do it for the extra stuff. Why not? But if not, I would also play it if, say, reviews come out and people are like, this game is garbage, I don't like it. Then I'll be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to see it for myself. Is this something that I really don't want to be playing? Then I would check it out. But if reviews are good and if you don't get anything special for doing it, I might just wait until the game actually comes out and then just play the game starting from the beginning rather than, playing it on the 29th or whatever and then waiting a month to continue with the story. I'll just have it all compacted into one thing. So.
No, I totally get that. You mentioned something interesting to me before the show, that the idea of this being similar to potentially to Nier Automata. Do you think that's potentially a downfall? Like people are going to start playing this like, man, there's nothing new about this. It's just another decently looking woman killing stuff, right? Is that a potential downfall for this game?
I mean, potentially it could be. You could definitely have people. I've seen like when the first one came out, a lot of people were saying things like a lot of people were comparing it to Bayonetta or Nier, and then I saw one person commenting, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize this game is a Souls-like." And people are like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I played the demo, and this game is like a Souls-like. I wasn't expecting that." And people are like, "Really?" Because it looked more like Nier or Bayonetta. It didn't look like a Souls-like. And then the person was like, "Oh yeah, you got like you're fighting and you're doing your parry system, and you've got the combat's all about dodging and parrying and that sort of thing. It's kind of like Sekiro." And then people come out and they're like, "That's what Nier Automata and Bayonetta are like. That's not a Souls-like quality. That's a lot of game. Final Fantasy VII Remake has a parry system. It doesn't make it a Souls-like in the least." So I could definitely see people, coming in with certain expectations of, oh, it's going to be like Nier, or it's going to be like, Bayonetta or something like that, and it is slightly different, and them being like, oh, this isn't what I was expecting at all, or people going in and hearing takes like, oh, it's a Souls like, and then playing it and they're like, no, it's not. This is more like a hack and slash, and then being like, oh, order canceled. So I could definitely see it being compared to other games as both helping it and being a detrimental to it. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, you having played, the Nier games, having played Bayonetta games, I believe.
I have not played a Bayonetta game, actually, but that's because most of them are on the Switch. So.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So being aware of Bayonetta and playing the Nier games, what is something you hope Stellarblade does that you'd like to see? A potential...
I'm not sure about Bayonetta, but one of the things that I really liked in Nier was the amount of customization you could do. You had the chipsets that you could put into 2B and 9S and A8 too. So you could take different chips and put them in and fit them in, and they would give you certain, you could say, okay, I want to augment my speed, or I want to add, maybe like when I swing the sword, there's like a laser wave coming out of it and that sort of thing. Or I want to up my energy or whatever. I really like those kind of customization options and your ability to kind of tweak the character to your play style. So if you were somebody who wanted kind of a slower, heavier style, or if you wanted to be a little bit faster, you wanted to be a little more cautious, a little more tanky, or if you wanted to be a little more risk reward, being able to do that, I think was really nice. And so I would really like to see something like that return, where you can kind of do customization for that sort of thing. So.
Nice. Well, I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. So I do see it on YouTube all the time. Very cool. And so my story today is going to be a game that it was trending when I was doing research about this story on Monday. It is a game called Slice and Dice on Steam. And board gamers, did you know this is probably the game for you? So I will say this much, that I've never been a dice gamer. Like, there's loads of games where it's like you throw some dice and you can use dice for different things. There was a strategy game that came out that I got it on the Switch, and I could not figure out how to get this game to work. Like, it was not the best tutorial for it. But basically, Slice and Dice is a pixel art game that's now available on Switch, on Steam. I was going to say Switch. I wish it was on Switch. It's developed by Tan, which I believe is the guy's last name, and again, indie developer. Tactical dice rolling roguelike combat. Take control of 5 heroes, each with their own unique dice. Fight your way through 20 levels of monsters and try to take on the final boss. If you lose a single fight, you have to start over, so be careful and lucky. So basically, if you played board games, if you played the similar games, right, you throw some dice, and each dice you can assign to the particular hero, right? And then you have the option to reroll some dice, and you can decide, okay, we want to damage this guy or this guy or this guy, and that's how the fights go, right? And it's very exciting and intense in a way. It's like, oh my god, I really need this. I can finish this guy off. This is what I understand for this kind of game anyway. The Switch does have Dicey Dungeon, which is a very similar game with a different art style, of course. But yeah, it's really, really cool. Like some of the features here, it says 128 hero classes plus 99,999, 73 monsters, 473 items, too many modes, curses, weird modding, online leaderboards. Really, it's an awesome game. Again, lots of people are interested in it. It was trending. It has no bad reviews so far that I've seen anyway on Steam. Yep. So if you are going to try it, let me know. This is a game that I believe will be better on the Switch, just because it's sort of that low res, easygoing game that you can sit and play. And as most of you guys know, if you've listened to the podcast, in the last 2 years or so, I've discovered the roguelike genre. And I enjoy it a fair bit. The repetition is very soothing, as difficult as that is to believe. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Keep an eye for it on Steam. It is currently priced at really cheap. Oh my god, it's $3 on Steam. There you go. That is a value game right there. Yeah, but and with some good replayability, again, support indie developers. And if you like pixel art and Dungeons and Dice and board games, this is the game for you.
Hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at it and I thought I heard the door in the background. Sorry.
No worries.
No, yeah, sorry, I got distracted. It kind of reminds me of back when I was playing Children of Zodiacs, and that was I mean, it was pretty dice heavy, and you could kind of customize your dice to what you wanted them to be, and so you could kind of tweak your chances at getting certain rolls or getting certain bonuses off of it and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it looks interesting. I always like the kind of card games and dice games that are converted into traditional kind of more RPGs, you know, the game kind of RPG where it's kind of, I just like that concept of where it's like, okay, you could in theory play this as a tabletop game, but we're just going to make it into a computer game for you for the convenience. And also because, you know, you could do it as a tabletop game, but sometimes it would be extremely complicated. Like, for example, if you wanted to customize your dice in a tabletop game, you could do it. But I mean, trying to customize your dice every single time could be either expensive because you have to buy a whole bunch of different kinds of dice, or really, you know, kind of tedious because you have to do something to change up your dice every single time. So I just like the idea where you take something that it's like, this is totally doable in the real world. It's just a logistic nightmare, and we're just going to put all the let the computer handle all that, and we're just going to have the fun with it. So I always love this kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's a really good point as well, is that like the advantage of digital. We've seen a bunch of like digital board games, digital dice games come out, and it is cheaper, right? Like $3. This, you could never sell a board game for $3 or a dice game for $3 ever, unless I don't know who you be, but yeah. So Felicity, what is story number 2?
So for me, story number 2 is going to be we're going to be talking about Larian Studios came out and they said, we are not going to be making any what do you call it, DLC for Baldur's Gate 3. So originally the plan was, hey, you know what, we should do DLC. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But then they said their heart just kind of wasn't really in it when they were trying to do it. They felt that they hadn't really moved on from Baldur's Gate 3 yet. They will be doing some tweaks. I think they're adding some story beats for certain characters and that sort of thing. But yeah, when they were doing the DLC, they said they started on it and they had all these new ideas that they wanted to try out, and they just weren't really compatible. Part of that has to do with the fact that Baldur's Gate 3 is based on fifth edition D&D, and there are certain things in there that they just kind of said, screw it, we're not going to follow the rules. For example, one of the rules I saw as an example was that 5th edition says you can only have you can only be attuned to 3 magic items at a time, whereas in Baldur's Gate they were like, nah, we're just let you attune to as many as you want. So things like that, you know, they kind of forewent the rules, but then they thought, you know, let's do some DLC, and they were like, well, you know, would we be going a bit too off the rails here? And they could also see that the team was mostly doing it not because they really wanted to do it. They weren't really like, oh, we have all these other stories that we want to tell or that sort of thing. It was just more of like, well, we're doing DLC because people expect DLC. We feel like we have to do it. And because of that, their heart just wasn't in it. And they were like, okay, you know, this is kind of, we're forcing it as opposed to letting it come naturally like it did on the main game. And we're worried that the magic that worked in the main game would not apply to DLC because we're not putting our full soul into it. And so because of that, they said, you know what? We've done our job. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It doesn't need anything else. We're done. We're going to move on. And yeah, so a lot of people were thinking that the DLC issue had to do a bit with Wizards of the Coast and taking the IP back. But Larian Studio says, no, it was our own decision. It wasn't Wizards of the Coast. You know, it was 100% us. We were just kind of like, you know, whatever, we're done with it. And if we're being entirely honest, we're probably never going to do another Baldur's Gate because, you know, they did take back the IP, you know, that whole deal is done. So we're going to move on to other things now. And we're going to, you know, like they were saying, there were things that they wanted to try and they were kind of like, well, you know, with the way the world works and all that, that might not be able to work very well, but maybe we'll be able to try some of those in a different game. You know, we can experiment around and we have a little more freedom to do what we want. So yeah. So no DLC coming for Baldur's Gate 3. If you had a lot of fun with it, sorry, but at least the game has a lot of replayability, so you can go back and try something new.
Yeah, this was interesting. I saw it and I posted it on like the line chat for Adam and Antoine and I. And to me, like as Adam's explaining the story, I just realized, yeah, I mean, they started off with Divinity Original Sin 1. That was 9, 8, 10 years ago. Then they went for Divinity Original Sin 2, and then they went to Baldur's Gate 3. And this is a decade of like fantasy Dungeons and Dragons style games. And that's got to be boring for anyone, really. Like I mean, if you're working with this day in and day out, 5, 6, 7 days a week, right? And it's understandable. And if you're watching this later live, go check out the poll. Like we had a poll running. I didn't even time it for this episode or this story, but we asked people like, what would you think Laren is going to do? And most people voted for a new IP. There's not going to be a Divinity 3. There's not going to be. Some people voted for cozy farming game. Actually, was another option I put on the poll. And people voted for that. I'm like, Larian Studio making a cozy farming game. I appreciate the vote, but I don't think that's going to happen either. But it's interesting. And the guy went out on stage, and he's the founder or CEO of Larian. Was like, yeah, the industry has some problems. If we need to do crunch time in order to come out a game, maybe the industry deserves to die. He's very pro-employee, I guess, or something like that. And it's good. Like, you don't want anybody working on something that's not gonna, it's not gonna make them happy when it comes out. So I'm looking for a new IP. I'd love a Baldur's Gate 3, but from a sci-fi perspective. Like, there's been a few turn-based sci-fi games, like a Warhammer Rogue Trader came out earlier this year. It wasn't super well received. It was also really, really difficult. So like a really nice turn-based sci-fi game. There was a Star Trek game back in the late 90s. I remember that was supposed to be fun. But I'd love like a new turn-based sci-fi game with some cool lore, some cool strategy, some cool effects and powers and abilities and stuff. And ideally in the Star Trek universe, because I love Star Trek, but whatever you'd want to do, I'd take that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to do a Star Trek. I was thinking Star Wars would work well too, but yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat where I'm like, okay, we've done some fantasy, let's do some sci-fi.
Yeah,
I always like that back and forth.
I'm gonna regret asking this: is Final Fantasy fantasy or sci-fi?
Both.
Oh, both. Both. Okay.
The original ones were kind of a blend between fantasy and steampunk, and then with Final Fantasy VII, it kind of went diesel punk in a way, kind of diesel punk sci-fi, and 8 was pretty heavily sci-fi. 9 went back to fantasy. So yeah, they kind of go back and forth. Yeah.
I always get confused because like sometimes I see the pictures and when we chat about the games and stuff, and then I see videos, I'm like, how is that in a how is that in a fantasy game? Or how is this in a sci-fi game? Like, how does that even make sense? Why would you use a sword when you can just shoot people?
Probably if you had to lump them all together, and you were like, okay, we need one thing that's most represented in the entire series, it would probably be steampunk, maybe. Yeah.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, my second story for today is a game called Across the Obelisk, which has been out on Steam for a while, but I'm talking about the Switch version, which has become recently available on the Switch. And why this is cool, again, if you're like me and if you know my story, right, if you're like Adam, right, like you're playing games with people who live vast distances away from you, in my case, South Africa and England, and you need a game where 200 millisecond or 300 millisecond ping times is not going to be the deciding factor of whether you can play a game or not. This is the game for you. It is a card game, or not collectible, but it's a card game, turn-based card game, cooperative online game. So in a game, you can imagine it's Adam and Anton and I play, and we're like in a fantasy universe, and we're playing with, we each have a set of cards, we control a character, and we go through battles, and we collect gear, and we collect gear in the form of cards, and we do quests, and we do things, and it's absolutely fun. I love the art style for this game. The Steam price, it is actually on Steam right now for, how much would that be? 5? No, 10? Almost $10 on Steam, on sale at the moment. and there's a bunch of DLC with it as well, so you can get everything together for about $20. So it's just a really cool game. So I'll read the description for you guys. It's set forth in a co-op rogue-light deck builder where every choice matters. Craft decks of breathtaking power. Journey alone up with 3 friends. Plot your party's path to glory and face powerful enemies in deep tactical combat in your quest to save the kingdom of Sinthemia. I can't pronounce that. I apologize. But yeah, it was just a game. I played this with my brother when my older brother was away for something, a reason or other, and it worked really well. And South African internet is not great, so usually when my younger brother and I play games together, I have to connect it to South Africa, which is a good 9,000 kilometers away, or like 6,500 miles, something like that. So, but yeah, really fun, really accessible, not at a fast pace. The text in cards, sometimes card games have like supremely heavy text on the cards and lots of multiple layers of rules. This is not that. Very easy to pick up, very easy to play, very easy to enjoy. I highly recommend it. I haven't put a huge amount of time. I think we probably played 6 hours, maybe 7 hours, not more than 7 hours. But in the time that we played, it worked really well. It was a lot of like, if you enjoy discussion tactics with the people that you're playing with, and you're like, okay, you do this, I do that, you hit him with that, use this buff ability, that sort of stuff, something that you might play with an RPG. This is definitely a choice for you to consider for your next family gaming. This is also kid-friendly as well, so if you do have kids, I definitely suggest that. You could definitely play this with the kids. Again, I would say any kid over 9 or 10 years old with, again, good enough English ability, because there are some complicated words, so that's something to take into account. But yeah, something you can do on the Switch, and let me know what you think.
So is this how many players? Because in the video they're showing like 4 people kind of doing it together, and it's just 4 people commenting, or are there 4 players?
I honestly have no idea. It does not say on the link. I would say up to 4 players. I play this with my brother up to 2. So I would say up to 4 players, because there is 4 characters I remember in the game. So yeah, 4 players makes sense.
Oh, okay, so each person can control 1 character.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking it was like,
and you could even,
4 players like playing a like I don't know, can Magic do more than 2 people? I remember we used to play cards games growing up, and we would definitely play games with more than, like 4, 5, 6 people, playing the same game. But
so
yeah.
the system, from what I remember when I played, was basically like, I have my cards. I can't see my brother's cards, and he can't see my cards. But like, I play and I do my stuff. So it's you're not sharing a screen. You have the full screen real estate. And so I'm doing my stuff, he's doing his stuff, and that's what the talking comes about. Not all the time, because a lot of stuff is just like, okay, attack, attack, attack. All my energy's done in turn, pass to my brother. He does his attack, 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 end turn. And only when like, okay, we're dying, or we're winning, or we need to do this ability, that's when the communication starts.
Okay, so it's PvE, not PvP, or yeah, co-op, not PvP.
Yes, very much so. There's no plans for PvP. This is definitely much like I remember reading about this. Lots of people were like, okay, we'd like to do this to be like a Hearthstone or like a Marvel Snap. The developers were like, no, we're not interested in that. This is just going to be a single player, and this does work single player. I could definitely see you playing the single player. This is just going to be a single player co-op experience going forward. So yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, let's move on.
All right, so I'm going to move on to my 3rd story then, and that is going to be Dragon's Dogma 2. If you've been playing it, then you might have experienced this. You might not have, but it's something called Dragonsplague, and Dragonsplague is a disease that your pawns can contract, and it can make them more powerful and more aggressive, which could be a good thing. It could also decimate an entire city and kill everybody inside, which is a very bad thing. So what is it? How do you get it? And what do you do if you do get it? So basically, only pawns can get it. NPCs won't be able to get it. Your Arisen, your main character, cannot get it. And the way that they can get it is they can either get it by if you're fighting some kind of dragon or a drake. And, it seems to be that there's a higher chance if you're fighting a drake and it bites the pawn, There's a chance of them getting it. The other way to get it is contagious. So if you bring a pawn into your team and that pawn has Dragon's Plague, it can then pass Dragon's Plague onto your pawn. So now your pawn will have Dragon's Plague as well. And you'll know that your pawn has it, or you can know that your pawn has it, because what's going to happen is your pawn's going to get red eyes. They're going to get red eyes that are going to be kind of be glowy, start to glow. And they're also going to not really be listening to your commands. So normally a pawn will do everything the Arisen tells them to, without question. But if they start kind of talking back, then you know, something's up with this pawn. They'll also be kind of like touching their head, like they maybe have a headache or something like that from time to time. So if you see your pawn acting strangely, look at the eyes real closely, just to check, make sure they're not red. And if your character already has red eyes, well, then that might be kind of hard to tell. So you might want to change the color there if you can. But anyway, what's going to happen is eventually, like I said, your pawn's going to get more aggressive. They're going to get stronger. They're going to become more powerful. And that can actually really help you if you're fighting really powerful enemies. However, the problem is if you go to a town and you fall asleep, you might have a situation where your pawn turns into this big shadowy dragon and kills everybody in town. And when you wake up the next morning, everybody's dead. And that's a problem, because if one of those people is a quest giver or something along those lines, well, guess what? That quest giver no longer exists. And that's going to be kind of a hard thing to continue on. It will not completely screw over your game. You just have to kind of figure out, where am I supposed to go? If you've played the game, then you already kind of know where you need to go. It might not be a huge deal. If you haven't played the game through yet, you might not know where to go. So there's a couple things you can do. You can, in that situation, you can use a Wake Stone, which is a special stone. If you get 3 Wake Stone shards, you get a Wake Stone. You can use a Wake Stone to revive dead NPCs. However, that could be tedious if you have to revive an entire city's worth of people. However, there is a Wake Stone called the Eternal Wake Stone, which comes from the Sphinx. So if you can solve the Sphinx's riddle, then one of the prizes that you can get is the Eternal Wake Stone. That will revive everybody in the area. So that would basically resurrect the entire city. So everything would be fine and dandy. But if you don't want to have to deal with that, especially because you can't go back and save scum. So if you're, once everybody's dead, there's no going back. What you can do is you can kill your pawn. So take that pawn, chuck him off a cliff, or chuck him into the water and let him drown, or be killed by the brine. Because if you do that, then, when you bring them back from the rift, they will be fine. So that's the easiest way to get rid of it, is just to kill your pawn. I did see some people online were not very happy with this solution, because as they said, I made my pawn look like my cat, and killing my cat makes me feel really guilty and terrible, and I don't want to do that. So there is one other solution, but it's not easy to do. What you need to do is you need to have somebody summon your pawn into their game and then dismiss your pawn. So basically your pawn needs to be used by somebody else, and they need to dismiss it to return them to the rift, and that will also cure your pawn. But other than those 2 methods, there is no known method of curing it at this point. So if you do get it, be very, very careful. Make good use of it while it lasts. Don't let it progress too far. And that's basically it for Dragon's Plague.
That is so cool and so scary at the same time. And oh god, like just all the things. Every time we talk about Dragon's Dogma, I'm like, yep, this sounds so cool. And I watch you play it. I'm like, I love the combat and the action combat. And then as I hear more things, I'm like, oh my god, like save scumming. I'm like, I love save scumming. I hate living with my choices. That's horrible. Why would you make me do that? So I'm going to wait until they make this game easier or more creative friendly.
They will probably not. However, there is already a mod out to save scum if you wish. So there's a mod out right now. That what you can do is you can take your, what it'll do is you can take different save states, and then at the starting menu at the beginning of the game, you can choose which save state you want to do. So normally what you could do is you could just go into the save folder, copy your save file, paste it somewhere else, and then if you wanted to, you could just swap them in and out. But there's a mod that basically does that automatically for you. So there is a mod for that. There's also a mod for one of the things that people were giving Dragon's Dogma 2 a hard time for were the microtransactions. One of the items, all those microtransactions, everything in the game is already in the game. You can earn it in game. You just might have to work for it. So basically, the microtransactions are just fast tracking. It's in a way, it's not that different from, say, playing Hearthstones and you could buy a pack with real money, or you could just earn in-game currency and then buy a pack that way. One way's faster than the other. So whether it's it's kind of sketchy or not, be your own judge on that regard. But they have already come out with mods for things like, for example, the transmog thing, the thing that allows you to transform how you look. Normally you have to buy it with Rift crystals. I think it's like 500 Rift crystals and you get 2 per playthrough or something like that. They made it that you can buy them with gold. There's a mod where you can buy them with 10 gold and the guy sells them in stacks of like 99 or something like that. So so you can, there are already mods to bypass all that sort of things and the save scumming and all that. So yeah, if you wanted to play, you could do it right now. I would just say do it on PC so you can get those mods. Otherwise, if you're on console like me, you're playing as intended.
And speaking of performance issues on the PC, I did see some news that there is a PC mod, unfortunately, just for NVIDIA 40 series cards. So that would no longer apply to me. It would apply to Antoine if you want to play Dragonsplague 2 on PC. That does significantly improve the performance of the game on 40 series cards, so that it is 4K 60 frames per second. So if you are a 40 series user, check that out. I'm sure if you Google NVIDIA Nexus mods Dragonsplague 2, you'll get it, and let me know how it works down in the comments. I'd be interested because I have seen the comments from people and then the issues online about the performance issues on PC. Of course, with all the plethora of issues that Adam's discussed already. Let's go, Dragonsplague. Very interesting. I'm looking forward to making that video come the weekend.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I haven't gotten it yet, so we'll have to wait and see if I even catch it.
Yeah, no, I think I'll have to borrow somebody else's Dragonsplague video and then use that for while you talk about Dragonsplague.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, my last story, probably not the last story considering we have speeded through 4 stories already in the first 30 minutes. My last story for today, or potential last story, is Lightyear Frontier. And yes, boys and girls, this is another farming game that I've seen and I've watched videos about on YouTube. And I'm like, it's wonderful, it's beautiful. But the cool thing about this game is that you have a mech. And I haven't played this yet. This is a game, like, I won't do early access games anymore just because it just ruins the feeling of the game for me. Not to mention, I've just decided I'm not playing any PC games until I get an Asus ROG Ally because I'm tired of sitting in front of this PC 6 days a week. So, so Lightyear Frontier is another farming game. You land on this alien planet. As you land, you're like, oh my god, there's a robot. You go to the robot and it's like, oh, I need to fix it. You fix the robot, and now you have like a robotic farmer. And the game's description is a peaceful open world farming village on the planet at the far edge of the galaxy. Find by a first map and such a new home called the distance and up to 3 weeks. This is more like this smaller version of a lot like decent, cozy farming like gaming where it's not just you, right? I was with my friends have and yes, you play with friends on like Twitter. You don't know how to say it is. It's going to be game to business of the world. These numbers March 20th, 2017 positive reviews. The price at the moment is $26, about $10 US. It's a 20% discount at the moment, which ends this weekend, so please get it if you do want to get it. It is in early access, and they say the early access will be a year and a half, so about 12 months. So this game will be fully released probably in June of 2025, if they're lucky. Oh god, my voice is terrible. So keep that in mind as well. Like, if you are a person who doesn't like to play early access games just because you want to get the full experience, this might not be for you. But just again, you might add it to your Steam wish list, right? Like my Steam wish list is 125 games, 127 games at the moment. And it is beautiful. It does look fun. The system requirements are relatively low. You're not looking at a top-tier processor. You're not looking at a top-tier graphics card. A mid-tier graphics card for minimum and recommended as well would do you fine. So definitely a cool, relaxing, fun game, and then Sometimes with these farming games, there's the sort of the fighting element, like in Stardew Valley, like in My Time at Sandrock. This game is the exploration stuff where you get to go explore and find new things, new ways to augment your farm, but possible new ways to new buildings that you can build to do things. And that is sort of like the extra in-game content. But yeah, if you're looking for a fun game and you want to try something out and something interesting and very different, give Lightyear Frontier a go. $10 and it's yours.
Yeah. I was when I was talking about the Baldur's Gate 3 thing, it kind of reminded me you're talking about these farming games. Apparently one of the next D&D properties that's coming out is going to be a kind of a survival farming game set in the D&D world, made by the same people that did Dreamlight Valley. So this genre is getting real popular.
Yes, yeah. I did see that. Gameloft is going to be, yeah. Because, I mean, they did an amazing job with Dreamlight Valley. That's another game I want to get back to. So it makes sense that they get a chance to do something else.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a backup story, sir?
I always have a couple in my back pocket. I don't have any videos or anything prepped for them, but I do have some stories to tell.
No worries.
So the Final Fantasy 7, sorry, not Final Fantasy 7, I want to say Final Fantasy 7. Final Fantasy 14 is doing his Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 14 is doing his Final Fantasy 16 collaboration. So that's coming out, and basically what you're going to be able to do is you're going to have some quests. You're going to meet Clive from Final Fantasy 16. You're going to play through them. You're going to the things you're going to be able to unlock are you're going to be able to unlock a Torgal mount. Torgal is Clive's dog, so you're going to be able to ride a dog. And I think you also get like a little Torgal little pet that you can kind of keep with you, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's coming out. I don't remember exactly when off the top of my head, but that's coming out relatively soon. And they say it's going to be up until, I believe they said May 2nd. So it should be up for about a month. So maybe it's April 2nd to May 2nd, or April something until May 2nd. So you have about a month to do that. So, feel free to hop into the game. Also in Final Fantasy 14 news, they said that they have the date for the... what's the name of the new expansion coming out? But the new expansion's
Dawn Trail?
Dawn Trail, yes, thank you. They're going to be doing Dawn Trail, but they released the date is coming out. It's coming out a week after Elden Ring's Erd Tree, and they specifically said, we all know that you want to play Erd Tree. We want to play Erd Tree, so we're not going to be releasing at the same time. We're going to give you a week to play Erd Tree, and then after that, jump back into Final Fantasy 14. So yeah, so they're doing that. So there's news on that front. That one's relatively short. What about you?
I just found a story from PC Gamer. RuneScape creators' new MMO has an unorthodox solution for inevitable waves of bots, giving you a legitimate way to bot the game yourself, which was interesting. And it says, obviously, we're never going to eliminate bots. So their approach has been to make it more so that they don't negatively impact your game. And he said this means all sorts of things. He says the studio has designed the economy of the game so that it's not going to be broken if lots of people bot. And the way that works is that instancing, they're going to use instancing, which means you're not going to be standing in a chunk and there's tons and tons of bots around you. But it also means that it's a bit more unorthodox, a legitimate way of botting the game. They're trying to minimize grindy gameplay. So he says when you log off, your character can still do stuff, which I thought is a wonderful part of gaming that I've saw Palia allows you to do that. I've seen a few games, but I feel like a few of games still require you to sort of like, okay, you can only do stuff when you play. A lot of Asian MMOs, allow you to sort of like do automated farming, automated combat and stuff. And I know people disagree with it. I think that's useful in a sense, right? I mean, that of course does affect an economy of a game, but I think that people should have the option to say, okay, I'm going to sleep. I want you to farm cabbages, or I want you to farm this mob and get this drop. And then when I wake up, I have, 915 rat tails or whatever it is. I think more games need this mechanic, even single player games. Like I would love to be able to play like a Diablo, and let's say, okay, I can only play an hour today, but Diablo, you keep playing on the servers somewhere in Blizzard and do some farming for me. So when I come back, I can get this stuff and do some crafting and that sort of thing. So bots are a problem in games. Bots are a problem in Snap. Bots are a problem in Hearthstone. They have not figured out how to fix it in those games. This is my recent botting experience. Like next week, there'll be the new season of Marvel Snap. And they always talk about the first week of Snap is always the botting season when you win a lot of games because you play against bots. And while that is a good experience, it's probably not a great experience for some people. You do want the challenge of playing against a real person, and sometimes bots can be really, really good and really destroy a new player experience, right? So it's unfortunate. I hope more games come up with ways to sort of deal with bots. I don't think you haven't played a multiplayer game in a while, right? Oh, you still play Apex, right?
I still play Apex, yeah.
Yeah, so what's the butting situation like in Apex?
My students tell me it's really bad. I don't know. I've never really noticed a real problem, at least not in the games that I've been playing. I don't play ranked though, so I don't know if people are maybe not botting non-ranked as much. Maybe they think like, oh, there's no real benefit to it. So, whereas in ranked, you can kind of get higher ranks, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are using like aim bots and stuff like that, and I just don't notice. But
got it. Very cool. All right. Did you have another backup, sir?
I did. So PlayStation has been announced that they are having 2 new features. There are patents for them, or one of them has a patent. They're not sure, we're not sure if we're ever going to actually get it, but the second one, we know we're getting it. So we mentioned before that that PlayStation is doing a community help feature. So basically what happens is when you can opt into it, it's opt in, not opt out. So, but what happens is when you play a game, it's going to record footage when you reach certain points in certain games. So, for instance, if you're fighting a certain boss or doing a certain mini game or that sort of thing, it'll notice that you're doing that activity right now. It'll record you doing it, and then it will upload the recording of you doing it. Once the upload is then done, it'll erase it from your system, so you don't have to worry about this taking up extra space on your system. But what then can happen is other people, if they are fighting the same boss or if they are facing the same challenge, they can go to the help feature and it will have a bunch of videos of other people doing this to show how it's done. And yeah, so they can choose which ones are really helpful and which ones are not helpful, and it'll kind of cut away the ones where maybe people are kind of goofing off, and so you don't have to take yourself so seriously. But people will be able to vote on which videos are the most helpful. But yeah, you can opt in where it'll show videos of what you've done, and other people can watch that, and then they can say like, oh, okay, that's how I can beat this boss, or that's the kind of gear setup I need for that sort of thing, or this is how I could do this certain mini game or that sort of thing. So you can opt into it if you want. Obviously, you don't have to. If you do want to opt into it, what you would do is you would go into your share, the share space, the share features, and it would be in the settings there. So, feel free to do that if you want to help other people out, or if you're having trouble struggling with something, feel free to watch some of those videos. Hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. The other feature that they recently patented was, and it reminded me when Korean was talking about the card game, and cards sometimes are very text heavy. So they're coming up with this AI feature that basically what it would do is it would simplify text. So they're saying like, some people, maybe for whatever reason, maybe you can't focus, or maybe you can't read quickly enough, or, maybe it's just, you just don't like all that text. A lot of games can be very text heavy. And what it's going to do is it's going to have a feature where it's just going to simplify that, so it would say, maybe if, I don't have an example because I haven't seen it actually, but in my imagination, what I imagine it works like is, if you're playing a game like, say, Dragon's Dogma or something, and they're saying like, if you would go over yon hill, you will see there is a drake which doth need, killing or whatever, and blah, blah. So they give you this whole speech that they always do, and it would just simplify it to go to that hill and kill the dragon. So yes. Yeah, so it would just simplify everything. So it's kind of like it just takes all the maybe if they're speaking weird, or maybe if it's the kind of thing where the character is saying like why have you done that? Why did you do that? You should have been doing this, that, this, and the other thing. And, might just simplify it to, you shouldn't have done that. So it's going to just simplify what the people are, it's going to simplify text and just give you a very short, succinct summary of what's being said. So how well it will work, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but yeah.
That is awesome. Like, that is like, out of all the stories we've talked about today, including my stories, that's my favorite because, oh my God, Well, I'm playing like a Japanese RPG at the moment, and there's lots of talking and story in it. Like the first 5 hours, I was like, okay, I'll like read everything and I'll think about it. Now I'm just hitting the A button continuously, skip. I know what you want to say. Get to the point, God damn it. But that's exciting. I like that. I think that is. I'm gonna use that actually as a story. I'm gonna cut one of my stories. So that is. I'm glad you included it.
Yeah, I saw it and I was kind of like, okay, this is kind of interesting. A little odd, but okay.
Very cool.
I feel it's kind of sad that our attention spans have gotten to the point where we're going to need AI to summarize things for us so that we can absorb less information.
It's life. I mean, you look at our shorts, like we used to have like 50, 40 view shorts, and we have not had a double-digit short in the last 2 weeks at all. And I mean, it's wonderful for us, of course, but just shows you the power of short form content and how much people are absorbing. And we saw that last year in YouTube stats. That's another story. But sir, so fill us in. Final thoughts. Continuing to play Dragon's Dogma, of course.
Yes, that's pretty much all I'm going to be focusing on. We'll wait and see how the what reviews, or if anything, if you get anything out of the Stellar Blade. Otherwise, I might do that one day. Just be like, hey, we're just going to do the Stellar Blade demo today, and that's going to be the stream. So maybe that, but otherwise, yeah, just Dragon's Dogma. I finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth recently, and it was long, and yeah, so thinking of going back and not undoing, but redoing everything is just kind of daunting right now. So I'm going to okay, I'm going to let that one sit on the back burner for a while and come back to it later. And maybe I'll 100% it. Maybe I'll merely platinum it. We'll see. But yeah, that one's going to be sitting on the back burner for a while. But Dragon's Dogma is my focus right now. So.
What about next week for people who are looking for you stream? Next week is that big holiday in Taiwan, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Still going to be streaming, or are you going to be away somewhere?
No, we're not going anywhere. We'll have to wait to see if there's if we're doing anything with the family, because it's what, tomb sweeping, right? Is it the long weekend?
Tomb sweeping, yeah, tomb sweeping, Children's Day, that
yeah, okay. So I think we've already gotten, yeah, we usually do our tomb sweeping over Chinese New Year, so I think we've gotten tomb sweeping out of the way. So we'll see if the family has plans on that Friday, then no, I will not stream. But if the family does not have plans, or if they have plans in the afternoon, then yeah, why not? I'll still stream.
Sounds good. And there you heard it. Make sure to check out Adam's streaming. He's like the perfect stream if you're not looking for somebody. If you're looking for somebody who's just going to show you the game and tell you about the important things, check it out.
Yeah, I'm super casual. I'm not like super great.
So support him, support us. Don't forget to check out the Amazon affiliate links. Buy some games that support us from Instant Gaming, and then we will see you guys same time next week for more gaming news, more stories, and hopefully our favorite French person in the world will join us as well.
Mm-hmm.
See you guys later.
Bye bye.